I was convinced that outsourcing was the answer because I would find university graduates with that level of commitment to a role that wasn't a transient role. I didn't like the exploitation of Filipinos. I don't think it's necessary. I think just through that inner observation, it really will spiral you into the truth and being okay with hearing what you need to hear.
Welcome to Mission Activated, where we bring you the stories of individuals who've awakened to their true purpose and are living a life of passion, impact, and alignment. I'm Aveline Clark, your host, and I believe that when you're on mission, everything falls into place. Here, we share the journeys of those who've discovered their unique path and embraced their soul's calling. It's not just about making money in life and in business, it's about making a difference, living on purpose, and inspiring yourself and others along the way. Let's get to it. My next guest is the lovely Tamsin Parry. She is a published poet and she lived in a modern-day ashram for 5 years, studying with a spiritual teacher. She's based over in South Africa and she runs a business called The Doing Company. And the word doing is what really excited me when I first met Tamsin because she's a doer. She just keeps on evolving and doesn't stay in just the one spot. You know how sometimes we can be labeled by, a job or one thing about us. Well, Tamsin sees that there's lots of potentials and she lives those and breathes them and connects and helps businesses. And her energy is infectious and she's an amazing soul. Great conversation. This is Tamsin Parry. Hello and welcome. It is so good to have you here with us today. It's Aveline and my guest today is the wonderful Tamsin Parry. She is the founder and CEO of The Doing Company. And through her work, Tamsin helps businesses thrive by outsourcing and building high-performing remote teams. She's got over 30 years of leadership experience, and in that, she transforms the way that small businesses in the US, Australia, and Europe manage their teams. By tapping into affordable, top-quality global talent, Tamsin gives business owners more time to focus on what matters most. Something that was really interesting to me is that she once lived in an ashram for 5 years, and she is a published poet. Tamsin, it is so wonderful to have you here. Welcome.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to dive into all of the things.
I love people's journeys. I love the intricate web of the things that make us who we are. And there's always these fabulous stories and aspects of who we are. And that's what makes life interesting and special. It's not necessarily how you serve in the world, what career you have. It's who you are as a person and how you bring that to life. And that's what this conversation hopefully is going to show our listeners. It's more about who you are and what activates you on this mission that you're on. So to get us started, I'd love to know, whereabouts are you in the world?
So I am in Cape Town, South Africa. I am born South African, as you can hear. I've never lost my accent. But we moved to Australia when I was 18, and it was not an easy move for me at the time. And then I moved back to South Africa. Did I move back to South Africa? Then back to Australia. Then I lived for 5 years in Los Angeles. Then back to Australia, and then COVID kind of coincided with a lengthy holiday in South Africa, which then rolled into enrolling our child into school. And now we're back based in South Africa, which I would never have imagined for myself. But here we are. So that's the journey of how I get to where I am.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's really interesting. And I'm sure we could have a whole hour's conversation about all of those moves, but we won't. Yeah. Let's stick on path, stay on path. Yeah. So how is it that you serve others, and what brings you the joy in that?
So at the moment, well, should I say, where I've come from in my journey is I I support business owners with helping them find top talent in the Philippines. So how I kind of came to that is through my background is in operations management, general management in Australia in person. So I had many, many years of managing people. And then I was introduced to outsourcing, which primarily in the Philippines. And at the time, the company I was working for, it was quite revolutionary because we had a huge team in Australia, 25 people. And it wasn't so much that, I mean, obviously the high cost was one factor, but actually the challenge for me at that time was finding good quality admin staff, entry level admin staff that would stay. So we had a retention problem. And as an operations manager, managing a huge team, 5,000 clients, all I did was train admin people because there was just such a high turnover. And I realized this was not a solution because we just couldn't find it. You know, we were finding mothers, we were finding young university students, and there was just a lot of churn. And then I was convinced that outsourcing was the answer because I would find university graduates with that level of commitment to a role that wasn't a transient role. And it's true. And that one of those people that I hired probably 8 or 9 years ago, going on 9 years next year, she's still in that role in that company. So that, can you imagine that's sustainability in that company? She basically runs the place now. So that was how I got into that. And it's always been with me. Wherever I've worked with whichever clients I've worked with, I've always recommended Filipino virtual assistants. I mean, I've just found that it's been the best kept secret to leveraging yourself, especially for solopreneurs, where the demands of online business today, it's just crazy because it's expected of us to be the funnel expert and the CRM manager and the client facing and so this like never ending social media. It's a lot and we have to do all the things in order, to succeed. It's really hard to not have all those things in place. So that's that. And so in the last 2 or 3 years, I've just dedicated myself just to doing that. And and it's really fulfilling. I mean, for a while, I was just doing the recruitment part, and this, I guess, will come into my personal journey. Was I began to find it not very fulfilling, or it was sort of, there was something missing. And then I've moved into the management service, which is actually an ongoing management of the teams, the teams and working with the business owners. It's like it's really come into my zone of genius without me really knowing it, because I'm able to really build relationships and help build infrastructure in the companies long term. So I don't know if that's too much information, but yeah, so that's the intro.
Yeah, wonderful. So take me back. You were obviously in corporate for a fair while, by the sounds of it, and very busy, which is great. Was it your personal life and the moving decisions that actually forced you to then look at a different way of working? Was that what happened? And just take me through that and how it impacted things.
I always wanted my own business. So that was just a drive that I had. And my mom's an entrepreneur and my sister's an entrepreneur. But when my son was born at 7, I pretty much knew I wasn't going to go back into an office, back into corporate. Yeah. And so I was going to do whatever it took to work from home and be available for him. And so that's sort of what triggered it. I had a lot of weird and wonderful ideas of what I wanted to do for a business. And it's quite a funny idea to approach business as, I just want to own my own business. It can be seen as quite selfish or whatever. It's not like I'm like, oh, there's a big gap in the market and I'm going to fix that gap and this needs to be fixed. It was just, I think it's about my gifts and wanting to really excel myself. I think in kind of corporate environments, you can feel like you can't fully express yourself, and I remember feeling like all my skills are left on the table because I'm not allowed to kind of do things. So now, so that was also that. I think it was the creative drive to wanting to express and see, can I make a go of this, and will it work? And I remember talking to one of my clients, who's a very successful online business coach. She, or should I say, she's a coach, and she works online in the architect space. And she said, she said, I want to make $1 million because I want to see who I have to become to make $1 million. And that is very much what the entrepreneurial journey feels like, because every day we're pushed to find out, like, do we have what it takes to go another day, or and it's such a personal, so many personal challenges that we have to overcome in order to keep going and be successful. And I remember talking to another a business coach in Australia. His name slips my mind. It might come back to me. But I was in like a small VIP group that I randomly got invited to, which was amazing. And I said to him, my question, we all had a question. I said, do you think the entrepreneurial journey is the modern day spiritual journey? And he said, yes.
Your spiritual life and your life is one and the same. And so how can you separate who you are? I mean, everyone's got a different version of spirituality, but how can you separate yourself from your business? You are your business. You are yourself. You bring yourself to your business. It is a journey of growth and evolution and personal development. So, of course, it's part of your spiritual journey. Yeah.
But I see it like the modern day spiritual journey, because the olden days when we used to go on pilgrimages and all of that, it's like you don't even really need to leave your own house to be really engaged fully in your journey. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you decided to start your own business, and did you already have it in your mind what you would do? Like, was it clear?
No, well, I didn't know I would be doing this business, shall I say? Right. I mean, I've delved into a lot of things. So I wanted to be like a money coach. I wanted to be a coach, because I really love working with people. And then I wanted to, then then I looked at being a business coach, and for a long time, I really explored that really while I was doing my own learning about the online business space. And I fell into the online business space through being exposed to this, becoming an online business manager. So there's a certification for that. And it really aligned well with my operational skills. So that was a natural transition for me. And I feel like I really hit the ground running in ways that I think other OBMs don't. And it was only because I had 20 years of management experience behind me, so that I could step into online businesses and kind of run them, even though I was learning all the tech and all of that. But I've always been into tech and software and using those to innovate and leverage. So that was a natural transition, but then it wasn't quite for me, because it was a lot of doing, and I think not enough people. I'm saying this in retrospect, and then it was sort of, do I want to go back into the online business? And interestingly, it kind of did. There was a part where it's like, I don't know if I just want to help people make money. And I was constantly being pulled into what I'm good at and where the opportunity was. So I started to see the gap and the opportunities for support. And when I was meeting, when I was an online business manager and working with business owners, and they were saying, I'm going to quit my business if I don't get help. And I'm stepping back as an outsider, almost starstruck. I remember one of the first online businesses I worked for, I was literally starstruck, because the girls were there was the Merrymaker sisters. I don't know if you know them. They are the most charismatic, beautiful yoga and Pilates teachers. and they weren't looking anyway, they just got a huge presence, and they weren't looking to stop their business in any way, shape or form. But when I worked with them, there was no ways they could continue their business in the trajectory without burning out that they were going for. And that was really heartbreaking for me. And I was really like, we need to fix this. And I had the solution, which is, Filipino VAs. So that was really part of the passion, because the way that I see it is there's so many, each of us, this is my belief, that each person has a gift, a very specific gift inside of them that like every single person, everyone you meet, whether they're expressing as an entrepreneur or a creative artist or not, the song is inside them. And as the saying goes, we need to let the song out. And these business owners were like, I can't actually do it. They were being crushed under the business. So by bringing in support systems and BAs, that, just having watched how they've been able to progress is really exciting to me, because I really want to help the world, and through helping the entrepreneurs in a very personal way to get the freedom that they need, then they can go out and be amazing and be in the front and be star-studded, and not behind their computers, like uploading blogs and, doing all the things. So that was sort of part of the drive of it. And then there's the very personal part of it, which is working with the Filipinos, which I think it is some karmic thing that I just have this strong affinity, and I just always have, to Filipino people. I've been to the Philippines twice. I loved it. And so to work now closely every day, with them, and understanding, the different their culture. And it is different to managing Australian people, and Americans. Actually, I've worked in America as well. But I'm really loving that part of it, and just seeing, and just helping people on their journey, on a personal level, and then obviously the businesses do flourish, and support people. Yeah.
Fabulous. You said something there about people have a song inside of them. Everyone's got their own unique song. I'd love to know, where did you learn that, or how long have you had that knowledge or knowing yourself?
Well, I don't know specifically that phrase. Well, yes, I do actually. So I started studying with my spiritual teacher when I was 18 years old. So I did a personal development program called Insight Seminars when I was 18. And the founder of Insight Seminars was also the founder of a spiritual organization. So I didn't know that at the time. And so through my years of, really being into personal development and I was into personal development, but basically I had a challenged childhood, and I was very, so probably in a nutshell, was very critical of myself. And I really needed to get over that, because it manifested itself in all sorts of ways. So that was my journey into studying with my spiritual teacher, who I have been studying with now for nearly 30 years. And I actually did a doctorate in spiritual science. So this, and the way it's a self-study where they take you through the curriculum, but it's a very wide curriculum, and you are basically the subject matter. You are your own, subject matter. And through it, we would discover within ourselves what our unique gift was. And then at the end of it, we present like a thesis on our studies. So people would do that, and some people would find that what would bring them, the kind of the purpose of it was what brings us closer to our God consciousness, which is a very big term, but but more about how do we feel most aligned with our divine essence, our divine power, our inner calling, and all that happens, because when we're in that direct line, and connected with the higher power, we resonate at a higher level, which brings greater intuition, greater peace for ourselves. And now in the modern day movement, it brings manifestation and all that good stuff. So that's pretty much the basis of that, in my understanding, the manifestation people, coaches and things like that. But through that journey of doing the program, some people would come out and it would be all about going into nature because they had done a scientific study on themselves about when they spent more time in nature, this is what happened. When they spend less time in nature, this happened. So coming back to your question, so that was each person's song. And what was so fascinating to me was how people manifested so differently. So one of the people did was about leadership and spirit-led leadership. And he was a top transformational coach at the time. And he started leading literally in front of like hundreds of people through spirit. So he wouldn't say anything unless he heard something inside, which is hugely courageous. But that was his way. And another woman started downloading like mathematical algorithms, which she didn't even know anything about. She went and she found it, and she ended up developing computer software for children to improve. It was kind of like, like we sports games. It was like it was a precursor to that, like before she developed all that. So anyway, so for me, it ended up being about creativity and poetry. But to answer your question, that was the song in each person, and to watch people engage their own inner selves and then manifesting it onto the planet. But yes, that leads me to the poetry part.
That's so, what a powerful way to start your adulthood, to do this program and learn all these aspects of oneself. Sounds phenomenal, really does. And so you've held that in you throughout your life, like you said, for the last 30 years, roughly. So you've always known that there's this, you're a spiritual being, you've got this genius inside of you. And at any point on that journey, did you feel, yes, I'm living that? Or were you still searching for a lot of it?
I think I'm lucky. I feel like I'm lucky that I didn't have a very strong religious background. So my father's Jewish, my mom's Christian, but we weren't a very churchy or synagogue kind of family. We didn't really practice anything. So I didn't have a lot of like indoctrination. So to me, when I came across this, it made a lot of sense. And I think it helped quell the anxiety of being a teenager and coming out of like a tricky teenage years. It did ground me. And part of living there, when I went that, so when I talk about living in an ashram, when you mentioned that in the beginning, so I moved. So I started studying with them as I said, when I was 18. When I was 28, I moved to their head office, their headquarters in Los Angeles. So when I say a modern day ashram, the ashram is actually in Los Angeles, and they've got a labyrinth, and it's a communal living, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place of peace and spirituality. So I think it's now, it's now one of like the top 10 spots to visit in LA, only because they've got this fabulous Japanese garden. Well, not only, but Japanese garden labyrinth. So it's a very peaceful place. And it's the home of this spiritual organization that I've been studying with for all these years. So the question was, have I always known that? I mean, to me, it's a living practice. And it's called MSIA, which stands for the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness. The movement of spiritual inner awareness. So for me, it's a very living thing. It's never been about learning it once and I know it. Like, you've got the song inside of you and let's just carry on. And, and there's a lot of brilliant principles. And really it's formed the foundation of my values, my value system, which is Christian. It is Christian based, like be kind, be loving, see the good in people and things and leave all the rest to God. I live by that one a lot, because sometimes it's hard to not be attached to how people behave and when things happen in the world. But so on that level, it's given me in the physical world a very strong foundation to conduct my life in an ethical, balanced, honest way. But on the inner, it never ends. So the study, the teachings feel alive, because we're always a new person if you're on a spiritual journey, like a path of evolution. So it's very much alive with me, and at times, no, it's not, but most of the time, it's my fallback. Yeah.
It's so powerful and lovely to hear that you had that for all that time, and it's formed the foundation of who you are and how your life has blossomed, I guess, through the years, and you've had that as like a guiding light, mentorship, and leadership, which is beautiful. Has there ever been a time on the journey where you felt like you weren't on path, like you weren't in alignment of yourself, and your genius and your gifts?
Yes, definitely. I'm just trying to think. I think through the years, I mean, when I just think about the last 7 years, with my son, I mean, we were in a situation where I had left full-time work for like 18 months, and I've always been a contributor, definitely, to the family. So that was a big shock for me to leave full-time work and be with my son. My husband was retrenched in like January 2020. Remember 2020? And so I was like, okay, this was my chance to do my business. And my husband came home and started, caring for my son. And that was great. And then we decided, let's go on this extended holiday to South Africa while we could, because I was working remotely and it was all great. And the weekend that we chose, we basically sold all of our possessions and our home and our car in Australia, 3 suitcases, flying to South Africa, coinciding with the weekend of COVID. So by the time we got to South Africa, it was 8 hours before South Africa closed the border. And that was it. So who knows what would have happened, but that was it. So that period, I cannot tell you. I mean, starting a new business is stressful. Your husband deciding this is the time to not go into work is stressful. And then COVID on top of it was stressful. And then, so it was a difficult time, and then what was well, for me, it was spirit supporting me, because I had moved into the online business space, and everybody knows what happened to the online business in 2020. It just skyrocketed. I mean, yeah, one of my clients was still trying to get back to the 2020 days, like that was just the highlight of online business. So, but that was on the flip side of that. I was taking on way too much work because you had to. I just said yes to everything because I didn't know what was going to happen, and I didn't know which client was not going to make it through COVID. So that was like ridiculous, working really, really hard. And, really, and I was really questioning, what I want to do and where I want to be. Going back to your question, because I always get a little sidetracked. Did I ever feel like I wasn't living in alignment? Yeah. So through all of that time, I was sort of like, is this the best thing for me to be doing? And I think, a lot of business coaches are talking about alignment. Like you need to design your business around your lifestyle. And especially when you work from home and, we can choose how we want it to be. So that's been something that I've really worked to do. Like it's important for me. This is another thing my husband and I learned a long time ago, that like the first 7 years of a child's life is the most informative for their emotional and mental development. So we read like one page of a book. Like that's we read one parenting book and one line out of it, and that's it. And we were like, okay, we'll just do that. So we have we have designed our whole life around these first 7 years. And my boy's just turning 7 now. And this weekend is our 10-year wedding anniversary. And it's our first time we're actually going away without him. Because we just want to, we just want to make sure. So it's cricket games and, everything when I have to go and look at his little school books, the end of the term, I want to be there for those things. So that's been a driver. Like, I want to create a business around me. But also the best thing is, I think my ego wanting to do something fabulous has kind of gone away, where is placing Filipino virtual assistants in businesses, my sole purpose? Maybe, maybe not, but it does bring me, I'm building based on my zones of genius. So for a long time, I was doing things in work that it wasn't really aligned to me. Building relationships and operations and fixing systems and all of that is my zone of genius. One of my zone of geniuses. I could, yes, I could be a poet, and yes, I could do, because we're multifaceted, but this is what I've chosen to get my 10,000 hours in. And the more that I streamline into this one thing, the more support, spiritual support, intuitive support, knowingness. I don't know what it is, but it channels into that one thing, so that I can just help in this small niche. And the thinner I go into this, this little channel, I think I will be able to actually help more and more people, because I'm just doing this one thing really, really well. And I mean, we can talk about the Filipino outsourcing and all the ethical things, and that's another whole piece. And that's another drive of why I did want to do this, because I didn't like the exploitation of Filipinos. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that whole, I think it can be done really well, and I'm doing it well, as opposed to some ways that other people are doing it. So for people that want to have an ethical person that's more cost effective, it's probably not going to be the cheapest, but who wants to pay the cheapest for a person and just that feeling of being out of integrity? And then on a more practical level, it will never last, because when they find a job that's slightly higher paid, they'll go. And if you're building your business and you want your right-hand person to stay with you for 8 years, like my previous client, that's what you want. You don't want to mess around with it, trying to get the cheapest deal. Anyway, so yeah.
If you're loving this conversation and want to dive deeper into purposeful work, then it's time to thank the 6-Star Leaders community for making this episode possible. The 6-Star Leaders are a group of purpose-driven business owners committed to doing business differently by embracing their unique genius and skills to make a real impact. It's a space for learning, growth, and truly becoming empowered in everything that you do. If you're ready to discover your own 6th star, go to bit.ly/6-star community-intro and book a chat to learn more. We look forward to seeing you. It's what you were saying before about the decisions you had to make, or you chose to make when your son was born, and the drivers and the focus. It highlights that life happens, right? And things happen in our lives, and you can't always be going, oh, I'm on path with my mission, when there's other priorities, things that come up that require your energy, more of your attention. And I have conversations about this with the people in the 6-Star community. We talk about this, it's, you're not always on, that doesn't happen, because we're human. And being realistic and responding to times where you might be in survival mode, or you might be in protector mode or nurture mode, you've got to do those things. And I think our journeys are more like spirals rather than straight lines. And what you're describing is more of a spiral or a curvy journey that picks up along the way these different skill sets and things that you've learned, but also you've got this underlying foundation of knowing that you are this spiritual being, you do have genius, you've got these gifts, and you're here to serve. And however you're serving could be different from today versus 5 years from now. But you're on that windy journey, and that's all that matters, really, that you are being true to yourself. And I think that's one of the key things I'm hearing from your sharing and your story, is that you've been true to yourself and your values and what resonates internally, rather than being externally driven. Would that be right?
I would say the old me was externally driven. So I did struggle a lot with that's, like I wanted to be an online business coach because I think it kind of looked good, and I saw, there was so many, the whole social media, bombardment. So and the more that I shut out everything, and I wake up and I'm like, how can I serve, this person and this client today? And also, and it's kind of like, that's really brought a lot of peace to me, because I was stopped chasing what I thought and started really listening to what I'm good at and what I can do and how, and just keeping it. It's changed that inside of me, and that's brought much more happiness, which I think um, I would have eventually learned, because I don't think it works. It's like, if you are not in alignment, like if something's not working or not aligned, then you've got to take that as feedback, because my sister and I, she's a crazy entrepreneur, and we've been talking since we were 12 years old. We've been around the like proverbial kitchen table, like always, trying to do amazing things, and wanting to, just, blow up the world and change the world, and and oh no, what was I going to say? The I lost my train. But the place we come back to is, if that was meant for us, we would be doing that. Like I knew I loved working with people, and I wanted to be a psychologist, because back in the day when I was at university, like that was the only real path for people that wanted to work with people, was to become a psychologist. And for some unbeknownst reason, I've never really done that. I never went into life coaching. I wanted to go into life coaching, but I never did. I wanted to be a psychologist, and I did 2 years of major in psychology, but I didn't complete. So I kind of struggled with that for a long time, and now I just trust that. And then here I am now working with people, and I do work at a deep level, because most of the problems between business owners and Filipino VAs, in my experience, especially new business owners, new to outsourcing. So a lot of my clients are new to outsourcing. It's mostly communication breakdown. So it's really going under and helping them kind of break through those barriers on both sides, to explain the breakdown, what happened. Let's see what boundaries we need to put in place to build a stronger relationship. And then normally it's just a small conversation, and then everyone's back on board. Everyone's feeling relieved because all of the misunderstandings have been cleared up. And then, we're back to business, rather than what possibly happens, and what I see happen in other agencies, VA agencies, where the VA is blamed without being able to express their side. And then everyone loses. They lose the job. The business owner goes back to struggling and trying to figure out how to get their workload completed. And so I'm really, so back to me is like, that's the fulfilling part of it for me, because I get to work with people in a way that I didn't didn't think that it would happen, but and then I trust that process. And that, going back to my sister, it's like, if we were meant to be psychologists or whatever, we would be that. So, but we're not. And this is where we are. And what can we do with our life experience and contribute, in the best way that we can. Yeah. And just keep doing that. And as you said, in 5 years, it may be I may be doing something totally different. Yeah.
I love how you then gave the example then of the relationship building and repairing that you're doing in your work right now. And for those people listening who've, engaged Filipino VAs or outsourced workers in the past, may have experienced some level of frustration. I know a client of mine said to me just a couple of days ago, "Oh, we're not going down that path again. That was just a nightmare." How did you come into this little niche? Because it seems that I don't know anyone like you who's doing what you're doing. I've met plenty of people that offer, Filipino talent, outsourced VAs, and they have these businesses, but no one talks about what you're talking about. And I don't see anybody trying to repair a relationship so that the everyone's, better off for it, rather than separating and going their own painful ways. Tell me how you fell into that.
So as I said, I outsourced, I hired my first VA for the digital agency that I was working with. And so that was where I got my first hand experience. So I started to understand Filipinos, to understand their culture. And I've always been fascinated by culture. And I think being in the Philippines, it was just, I'm not a historian and I'm not an overly intellectual person, but I just kind of pick things up, and to understand, it's a fascinating country. And still I have so much to learn, but to understand the combination of their work ethic and their Christian values. So they're Christian based, and they're a US education system. So they are very well educated, and culturally, there's a strong emphasis on a tertiary education. So most of the VAs that I hire have a tertiary degree, whether it's in their industry or not. But anyone that's completed a tertiary degree has a level of experience, so that combination is there. But I was fascinated, like how can these people work for such a low wage? Like really understanding the cost of living and all of that. And that's also like an ongoing process. But I really, really wanted to make sure that what I was paying them was a decent wage and was going to sustain them and their families. So as I said, I'm definitely not the cheapest, and you can, it's outrageous. And often, obviously, I meet hundreds over the years, thousands, because of all the people that I've interviewed. And some of the stories that I hear of their work experience is really shocking. And I also heard recently, I don't know if it's true, but a Filipino VA actually took their business owner in Australia to the Australian Fair Work, and they won for
Wow.
unfair dismissal or something.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting, because there's a lot of shadiness. I would say mostly Americans, like the exploitation is really, I'll say disgusting. It's shocking. So I'm trying to create a fair work environment that, and that's a mutual relationship. So that's just one of the things that I wanted to create. But also just a small point was like the salaries, the wages within the Philippines are really low. So like a VA is actually in some instances higher paid than a pilot or an engineer. So I'm meeting people. I'm like, you've got a degree in engineering. Why would you want to be a VA? And they just can't. They can't afford to live on the engineer salary. So all of that came into it, and then doing different versions of the agency. I think traditional agencies, it's just about money and just about putting bums on seats and not caring about the long term. And I didn't like that. It was because I worked with agencies. All of my first VAs were through agencies, because you kind of need that in the beginning, because it is a bit like the Wild West. So for someone to be stepping, like just doing it on their own, it's really hard. But the agency, I feel, actually gets in the way of the relationship building. So I encourage all my business owners, and they all do, to treat their VA like their right-hand person, because in most cases they actually are. They are their EA, their customer service person, it's that their social media person. And that really works, because you're building a proper relationship. And oftentimes that agency is actually separates that relationship. So I just saw a better way to do this. And my latest is I've been doing a lot of creation with custom GPTs, and I want to bring in AI, because I think that's going to help the VAs with the quality of the social media that they bring in, not just productivity. But I know that is a problem. So I'm just always looking for ways that I can really make the relationship between the business owner and the VA, a really strong and solid one. And also, I mean, from working with people for 20 years, you have to be invested in their growth and development. Anyone, even if you've got the fanciest sales manager in Australia working in Australia, he still needs to be incentivized. He still needs his rah, go, and he's getting paid $250,000 a year. So why wouldn't we extend that? So it's just how to get the best out of people is by, inspiring them, motivating them. And it's just something that I've always believed in and always done. And I've always, my staff most of the staff that I've ever managed, they either love me or they hate me, because they either get it and they like the boundary, they like the structure, and they like everything, or they just buck up and they don't want a part of it. And then, that's fine because you weren't meant for me or for us, for the company. So yeah. So that's sort of, that's why Mm.
I really love what you're doing there. You're a relationship healer and builder at the same time, and helping businesses to become more sustainable and effective as a result. Yeah, wonderful. I want to take a different track now a little bit and ask you, what would you say to others who are searching for more meaning and fulfillment in their work? Like, how do you think they could go about that? I mean, especially given your last 30-year history, you're the right person to ask.
Wow. It's a good question. How do I think people can find more fulfillment? Yeah. I think if it was a simple practical thing, because I'm quite a practical person, would be like journaling and just having that internal process going inside. And whether it's, if you feel like my work is meaningless, write about that. Why do you feel like it's meaningless? Because you're not getting clients, and why aren't you getting clients? And I think just through that inner observation, it really will spiral you into the truth, and being okay with hearing what you need to hear. Because there have been brutal times for me where I've had to say, you know what, I really want to do that, but I can't, and it's not right for right now, and being practical about that. But then also questioning the why you're doing things and pursuing the wrong things. And I also think, going back to the customer, like whenever I'm having a really, 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 really difficult time, because it happens when it's like, that didn't go well, and then this, and then I just think about the one or the two people or clients, and I'm like, right, this is why we do the hard stuff for these people, because if we can make a difference in one person's life, then but then if you're asking yourself that question and you don't get a vibe, an inner feeling, then maybe you need to question yourself and go, this is actually not the right thing for me, whether it's the right business for me. But I also think you need to be practical as well, because if you do, that's also a good thing is to talk about is if like, don't be quick to throw to change things and throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's something I've learned. So let me just explain this a little bit. It's when you feel that it's like it's all too much. No, well, there's two things. One of them is I want to go and do something else, because I think that as multifaceted, especially women and on the spectrum and whatever, creative and so much stimulation, is, make sure that it's practically done. And I know that's hard because we just want to drop this one and go to that one. But to make sure that you are taking care, number one, taking care of yourself. So that's making sure you've got enough money, to cover yourself, and not to let your mission or big dreams of saving the world overcome your personal needs. Because if you can't pay the bill and you're struggling with that, it's really hard to be. So I think there is that, it's Maslow's level of hierarchy or whatever, and really understanding where you are in that on that spectrum. So you're taking care of yourself before. So that's one thing. But then also just knowing when to hold. So sometimes it's like, I'm going to burn it down. It's like, no, go and get into bed and put Netflix on and just let the world wash over you for the day, and decide tomorrow. And I call them the bullfrog days. And this was so good when I developed this. I call them the bullfrog days. And because on the bullfrog days, which is when like everything's not working and not going well, I just want to quit. And so what I do now in my diary, my Google Doc, I write bullfrog day, because when it's happening, I feel like every single day is like that, and it's not worth pursuing. And then I go back to my Google Doc, and then I go, when was the last bullfrog day? And then I realize it was like 7.5 weeks ago. So mostly every single day, I love my business and I love my work and I love everything, and everything's fun and everything's an exciting adventure, and I can knock everything off, and then I have a day, and it's hilarious, because then I'm like, all right, okay, this was like 7 weeks ago. It's fine. I can have a bad day. And then I start to really embrace, it's not a bad day. It's just some days my business requires this. And this is where that's where the transformation and my spiritual journey is happening, when I can change my attitude to the bullfrog days. And yeah.
There's so much in that. I so appreciate you taking us there. And I'm now envisaging myself creating a bullfrog day, record repository. But yeah, there's so much there. Taking the time, being honest with yourself, being kind to yourself, pausing while the craziness happens and you're not in the space to deal with it, letting things go, and then being able to manage it. And like you said, that transformation, that growth happens when you are actually consciously choosing to deal with it and come out of it and understand yourself. That's where the growth happens. Yeah. Wow. So look at the time. We've gone a little bit over, but that's okay. It's been so much fun. What does the next couple of years look like for you? Do you even look ahead? Is there a vision, or do you focus more on the here and now?
No, but both. It was, as I said, it was my 10-year wedding anniversary last night. And I said to my husband, it's like the secret to happiness. And we can talk about the, depression, which is like another whole best friend that I have lived with my whole life. But the secret to happiness. So for me to say this, it's quite a profound thing to feel like I found the secret to happiness. It's about loving and appreciating everything just the way that it is right now. And then also dreaming of the big dream and the big fancy house and being able to travel, with my family being in Australia. All I want to do is have enough money that every holiday isn't just to Australia, that I can, travel and all of that. So that's for me personally. For the Doing Co, as I said, I mean, the AI, I'm sort of leaning into how AI is like the next extension to the VAs. So if I can train the VAs into the clients' businesses, because I know my clientele that I work with, AI is not achievable for them just because they're so time poor. I'm in a very particular time in a business's, journey where the business owners are very, very time poor. So getting the VA in is the first part, getting them freed up. But if I can bring in AI tools primarily around the marketing and creating SOPs and things like that, that's kind of really exciting me to use that and bring that into businesses, whereas the business owner doesn't even have to do the AI, but they will be leveraging on the benefits of AI. So that's my new and exciting immediate project. But then when you talk, every time I talk about, when you say things like you have someone that had a bad Filipino experience, it's like, how can I heal that in some small way? And I know people, the days of just getting the cheapest VA are over, with remote work changing so much. People are wanting to leverage the best talent, no matter where it comes from. So, just taking more of a dent in that and bringing a better solution to people is kind of what's driving me at the moment. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And thank you for your secret to happiness too. That's really profound. Yeah, I love it. How can people get in contact with you?
Probably the best way is thedoing.co, thedoing.co, which is my website, and LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. So either my name, Tamsin Parry, which is easy to find, or the Doing Co. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. And we'll have all of those links in the show notes below, of course. Final question for you, Tamsin, that I like to ask all my guests on their way out. And that is, what words of encouragement or little tidbit would you like to leave our listeners with today?
That you have genius inside you, and I strongly encourage you to take time for yourself to nurture that genius and trust yourself to do what you need to do to get that out into the world, because the world needs to be transformed. That's like a given. We all know the world needs to be transformed. And I believe it's not going to be transformed by a guru or anybody, any one person, not even an Oprah or a Dalai Lama. I don't believe it. I believe the transformation is happening through each individual person, shining their light, igniting as brightly as they can, as often as they can. And we're human, and we all have our when our little candle goes out and we've got to climb into bed with Netflix, but to believe in that what you have needs to be shared and transmitted, and that and so it's actually not just a selfish thing that you're going to go and do a business. It's like the world needs you to really step into that, so that you become more ignited, and by being ignited, you ignite others and others and others, and that is how it's going to happen. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't have put it more perfectly myself. Tamsin, thank you so much. Thank you for being here, for sharing your genius, your light, and for all your golden nuggets and everything that you've shared with us today. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Mission Activated. If today's conversation resonated with you, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Remember, your mission matters. When you live on purpose, not only do you transform your own life, but you inspire others to do the same. Until next time, stay aligned, keep activated. I'll see you then.